This is the CSM to ITSM migration panel discussion. We got a great panel here to talk about that. My name is Phil Bowermaster. I'm with the ESM Solutions Marketing Team. We've made a lot of progress in terms of migrations over the past year, and this is an opportunity to take a deeper look at what that looks like on the inside for those who have done it. So I'm going to turn this over to Dan, and he can introduce himself also.
Good morning, folks. My name is Dan Morgan. I'm the Senior Director of Professional Services, so I help manage all of our wonderful consultants that help you folks with your migrations if you're thinking about it. So we've got a couple of options. You can work with the professional services team. I see a few wonderful partners in the room here. At least one of our panelists here has worked with a partner on their successful migration from CSM to ISM. So you've got lots of options. So we're going to talk today about the journeys from these folks. Let us introduce our panelists for today. Yeah, we'll just start with Allison.
Hi, good morning. Allison Hull. I am a Senior Director at Maxar Technologies, currently involved in the OCIO group in our IT department.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Klein, and I'm from Fairway Stores, and we are a grocery store chain in Iowa, and we have about 140 stores. My title is now ITSM Specialist.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Munger. I am the Deputy CIO, Director of IT Service Management, and Director of Business Intelligence and Analytics at Memorial Health System. We have about 3,500 employees that we operate in Southeast Ohio with 75 various provider clinics and 3 hospitals.
So we're going to start this off. We're going to work our way through the migration process that each of the 3 of you have been experiencing. And we're going to start out, I think, Dan, an interesting place to begin this is to talk a little bit about the decision to migrate. And maybe you can cue that up from the services perspective.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Phil. So obviously we've got a bit of a challenge with Cherwell being sunsetted, but we have a wonderful platform to move to now with ISM. So each of these wonderful panelists here have made the decision a little bit differently of why to migrate, when to migrate, and we'll kind of talk about the schedules, how it progressed. Did you do it big bang? Did you do it in pieces? But let's start on the far left with Steve. Why did you decide, and how did you decide it was time to do it?
So initially when Cherwell was acquired by Ivanti, I had already been involved with a lot of the users group meetings. Specifically, I'll call out Jesse Miller and the Breakfast Club, and just as a resource and showing me the things that the Neurons platform could do. I knew already. I in my mind, I was already going to my boss and saying, "We got to do this. This is something we need to do. We need to migrate." But it was more of a challenge than that because it took a little longer to get to that decision point. And I think for us, once I upgraded Cherwell to 10.2.5, that was the last nail in the coffin of Cherwell, in my opinion, because our performance really went bad. And at that point, we decided we needed to either look at something else or migrate with Ivanti. And in a nutshell, we ended up staying with Ivanti.
Barbara?
Yes, we are still actually on Cherwell 9. Reason why we started looking at alternate solutions was when we attempted to migrate to Cherwell 10, we actually had a lot of complications and issues using one of our partners to try to help us migrate. It was a lot more money and issues and just very prone to errors, and we weren't able to get over the hump, so we decided to actually no longer go down the upgrade path and just look for an alternate solution that would really better meet not only our initial service management, but provided additional capabilities. So doing a lot of research on Gartner and everyone. I first started looking at ServiceNow, who is a top quadrant service management solution. And then I found Ivanti. After I initially discussed and got some pricing on ServiceNow, and did the same thing with Ivanti, I was finding that I was able to get the same services and additional capabilities to really have a complete solution that ServiceNow would offer for only a fraction of the price. And it was a bonus that we're able to use the same company that had the knowledge within Cherwell to help us migrate into the solution that my team would have had to try to figure it out if we were to have gone somewhere like a ServiceNow platform.
Thank you. And Allison, your decision process.
Yeah, I think our decision at Maxar really followed along the same path as these guys. We did hit a crossroads where we did look at alternate tool sets, ServiceNow, and we looked at Atlassian. And just, through the evaluation, we were really impressed with Neurons. We liked the functionality that it brought forward. We already had the established partnership with a lot of the Cherwell folks that had then transitioned over to Ivanti. And then being in aerospace and defense, we like the full functionality of the Neurons platform with some of the security features. Vulnerability management is really important for us. We're obviously focusing on a phased rollout of ITSM, but we also have teams that are looking and evaluating some of the other security features so that we have sort of one platform that we're able to expand and grow upon.
Thank you. So Allison, I don't know if you mentioned when you introduced yourself, how big is Maxar? How many licenses? How many departments?
Yeah, so Maxar has grown. I've actually been with the company about 15 years. When I started, around 250-ish people. Now we're close to 5,000. So through the years, we've had a lot of M&A type activities and have just grown our user base. We have both on-prem and we have our hosted instances of Cherwell today. So very hybrid, diverse environment that we're managing.
Thank you.
So this is actually great. I love the way this works out. So we got 3 different decision points that led to the migration here. Okay, so we got 1, capability issues with CSM. 1, we want to expand to Neurons and take advantage of all that goodness that Neurons provides. And then 1, because we're better than ServiceNow. I couldn't pick 3 better reasons for going. So that's probably if you Pareto it, if you 80-20 it, half the battle is deciding, right? But then there's the rest of the battle, which is actually making it happen. And in order to make it happen, there's an awful lot that is going to go into that migration. But a key piece of that is obviously going to be putting a schedule in place. It's going to be figuring out what's our time frame. And we know that Ivanti, we've got our time frame around this. And obviously one of the drivers for folks now is that the product is at end of life. So, the time becomes maybe more urgent as we move forward. So that increasingly becomes a driver. But every organization is going to be working on its own schedule. Everyone's got its own priorities. So the schedule is going to be different. But Dan, I think you would agree that's a key part for getting this going.
It certainly is. And just to clarify for folks, end of life is end of December of 2026. So we're not in a hurry. And we're finding when we first start talking to customers about the migrations, we got to go. But we don't have to do that. And once we get into these projects, we find that people are taking their time like they should to make sure that they're building what they need in this new platform, leaving what they don't need behind. So people are taking their time. They're not rushing. It's not 2-3 months. It can be 6 months. Some of our customers have taken over a year already to do this process. So we're not in a hurry. So yeah, let's talk about the schedule. How did you folks set the schedule? And I'll start to my left here with Allison. What were your drivers of, do we have a deadline we have to meet? Is there some other event that is driving how quickly we have to get this done?
Well, jokingly, my team probably feels that I'd like it sooner than later. However, when we did the Cherwell implementation, we did have some, I'd say, obstacles along the way. So this time around, we wanted to make sure that, we're taking lessons learned. We're taking pain points from our user base, and we're really doing it the right way and an enhanced user experience before we roll it out this time. Our approach has really narrowed down to, I want to say it's been about 12 months by the time we go live, right? In building out the requirements and working with the user groups. And then through that journey, we're even going to phase it across different modules. So for example, and total disclaimer, we haven't fully gone live with any of them yet, but we do have one coming up at the end of April with our CMDB and our ITAM capabilities. And then shortly after that, somewhere around the end of Q2, I think we're doing ITSM capabilities and so forth. So we're trying to take a very conscious approach with how we deliver this to our stakeholder groups and make sure that, again, for us, just revamp the entire user experience, make sure we have all the things in place so that our customers are delighted with what we roll out.
So Allison, once you go live with this first phase, do you have to immediately get off Cherwell?
No, we don't, actually. We are going, so with CMDB, for example, we do have a function of that running in Cherwell that will go into sort of a read-only type situation while we migrate over to the Neurons CMDB, and then we'll go from there. But nothing's forcing us, and we're not up against a timeline. We want to make sure we do it the right way.
So yeah, that's very important to note. We don't have to flip a switch and you suddenly have to stop using Cherwell and you have to get on the new platform. We've got some time where you can be using both actually in your environment. Barbara.
I did probably a year's worth of research in laying out the platform and what all of our requirements that we were looking for in a new tool set, so I could compare the best solutions to really know and understand what our customers needed and wanted and how we could improve the solution platform. Once we decided and I had the cost, it was easy to get the approval to go ahead. We had to start that in our beginning of our fiscal year, which for us was October 1st. We were originally going to go live April 1st because that was when our Cherwell migration, our contract was at an end. We will actually be going live on May 1st because working with Ivanti, they're able to actually extend our Cherwell licenses, which for us was a huge benefit. It took a lot of pressure off of, something took a little bit of time or anything, make sure we got it right. We will be starting with what we're considering our foundation, which is our ITAM CMDB capabilities. We're also implementing the ITSM solution with change, problem, incident, service request, or service portal, and using the discovery module. We also have multiple phased approaches. Later on, there will be adding additional workflow capabilities. But for us, this is going to be our starting point.
Excellent. And Steve, are you as thoughtful and methodical as these two ladies?
I have to say no. Fairway Stores is a family-run business, family company, very tight-knit. You're all part of the family. Things never go fast at Fairway. I learned that 12 years ago when I started, and I'd make suggestions, and my boss would say, no, we're not in any hurry. So we really started looking at this right after the upgrade in November 2022. Didn't get a lot of traction, which I'll talk about later, until February of 23. And by that time, we were facing a renewal with Cherwell, and we had made the decision to move forward. We actually started the project at the end of April, 1st of May in 2023. And thanks to Farron, who is back here from Avanti Solutions, they worked with us to initially get the project off the ground. My goal that was set for me was to go live before the end of the year. I had been trying to be aggressive and saying, we can do this by July. Well, no, that didn't happen. But we did manage to get live before the end of December because in the grocery store industry, we do an IT freeze through the holidays because you really don't want any systems to be disruptive to the process of getting groceries from your warehouse to your store and to you. And that said, we did it kind of as a phased project where my priority was incidents, secondary was problems, and then we went to change management. I had some custom things like contract management. I think that was the only one that was a major package, but all of that really rolled out at the end of December. And then we spent from December until just the last month or so, just ironing out the bugs and streamlining some of the processes, making sure that workflows were working the way the users wanted it. And I have to say that our retail help desk users hated Cherwell. They just did not like to use it. They love Neurons. They actually are now using it, and that makes me very happy.
Excellent. So common theme is you took your time, you did your research, you made sure you were moving over what you needed to move over. Kind of a bonus question. Some of the scuttle I've heard from admins at Cherwell is they're worried that they can't take on the new platform. It's scary, it's new, I don't know it yet, but after talking to the three of you, you've got some great staff who were very easily able to take on that new platform and learn it.
Landon and myself did not take the administration classes. What we did was approached our sales engineer, and probably in March of 2023, we got set up with our own exclusive demo environment and used a lot of YouTube, a little bit of the Advantage learning, but we felt that we could take it on ourselves and learn it. And the transition was not that difficult. There are some challenges. Expressions are a little different, things like that. Workflow's a little different. You don't have blueprints anymore, but that's all in a good thing because the interface is much better.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So interestingly, this is not something that you have to do completely by yourself. You make the decision to do it, you put a schedule in place, you get started on it, but you're not alone. Avanti does want to see you succeed in this, and we've got a lot invested in making sure that it's going to work right for each of you. And I think the support and guidance that we provide along the way is something that we've built up and come to understand as more migrations have occurred. We've learned a lot from customers like the three of you as we go. And I think, Dan, you probably have learned more lessons than most with the position you're in.
We have, and luckily you can't see my scars. So we've got about 30 in process right now in the Americas with customers, 30 migrations from CSM to ISM. I think we've got 15 going in EMEA. So a lot of interest. I'm talking to partners. They've got a lot in the pipe as well. Like Steve said, he's had the opportunity to work with Avante Solutions. They've done a handful already. So we're learning more and more from our customers of what is working, what might not be working, getting really great feedback of what they might want to put into the product as we get through these things. Hey, we used to be able to do this in Cherwell. Is that there? Is it coming? We did a lot of work up front to understand what the gaps were between the two platforms. Like Steve said, we don't have one-steps, but we have quick actions. Quick actions are actually a lot more capable than the one-steps were. So we're building that functionality, taking that Cherwell goodness, like I like to call it, and putting it into the ISM platform. But we learn with every new migration something that we may not have thought was important, and find out that we should actually put that in the product for the customers and put that on the roadmap. So yeah, Allison's team, Barbara's team, they've had the opportunity to work with our professional services. So Barbara, you've got the mic if you wouldn't mind telling us how that has gone working with us, not just services, but our support organization, product, engineering, all the wonderful folks within Avante.
Yeah, Avante Professional Services has been fantastic to work with. They've really helped us understand our environment. We would show them what we're doing in Cherwell. We had built out a lot of complex business objects in Cherwell that we needed to migrate over. And I can't speak, highly enough of Don and Shay and everyone of the professional services team helping us create what we need to do. Because for us as a foundation, we're taking everything from Cherwell into Avante as our foundation. And really there's a lot to take a bite out of between helping and getting some extra support, because my team also built a lot of our own service objects and everything else, and getting some knowledge, information sharing, and just, hey, how do we make this work? And just, they're so helpful in sharing their knowledge and giving us the information that we need and really helping us understand the product. I couldn't be happier working with them.
Great, thank you. Allison?
Yeah, I think for us, as I mentioned, we've used several different third-party partners with our Cherwell migration, and that went fine. But with Avante Neurons, we decided, this time we're going to use Avante Professional Services, and we couldn't be happier with it. No one's paying me or incentivizing me to say that. Kind of feels like it, but it's been great. The way that they've managed it, the flexibility, and just the knowledge that they bring to the table has been really pleasing for me and the team overall. Can't say that about every vendor engagement I've ever had. So kudos to Avante, and really appreciate, all of the partnership that we've been able to build.
Excellent. And Steve, like you mentioned, you worked with Mr. Roth back there in Avante Solutions. So many of our partners are helping us in the migration journey as well. So
yes, we worked with Avante Solutions. Initially, they did our implementation with me for Cherwell like 5 years ago. And it actually wasn't fair. And I think it was Stephen Waxler that did that one. But, I felt confident in working with them, and Farron has been awesome. I can send an email, or Landon can send an email to him, and within 24 hours, we've got an answer back, and he's working on it with us. Their approach is a little bit different because we did a statement of work, and we agreed what things Fairway would do and what things we needed help with initially. And now we're at the point where we're asking them for help on future things. We just started to go down the path of discovery, which is new for us. Our CMDB and Cherwell was my own fault, but that's okay. So that's kind of where we were with it. But, either way you go, there's a lot of good resources out there.
yeah, exactly. You've got options. So talk to us, talk to your partners. If you're thinking about us, let's talk about the lessons we've had from the ones we've done so far and how we can get you there.
Now, Steve kind of jumped the gun on this one because I think you gave us your phases. But one of the keys to this is that it doesn't happen all at once. That you make a decision, you put a schedule in place, you line up resources to help you from Avante or elsewhere, as was mentioned, and then it's going to take a process. It's going to take a certain amount of time, and it's going to take some stages. Some things have to be in place before other things can happen. And I think we've probably got a pretty good template for that at this point, but it's going to vary with each organization.
Yeah, exactly. Like we said, you don't have to bite it all off at one time. Do it in phases. And we're not going to rush you to get off your Cherwell platform. We're not going to cut your licensing off. So you've got some options there. And as Steve mentioned, it's very important to understand how we're going to share the responsibility. So any of these migrations we do, we try to treat it as a KT opportunity. He had said they didn't necessarily use as much of learning services as the other two panelists here did, but we want to make sure that we're teaching you along the way. This is an opportunity for you to learn from our team, from the partners teams. How should we do this? It's face-to-face KT as we go, helping you build those solutions out. So Barbara, you've got the mic again.
Like I said, we are doing our first implementation is what we consider our everything from normal Cherwell or from our Cherwell environment into Ivanti Neurons. We're then going to be doing I'll call like a 1.5. We're going to replace our BondGuard solution for remote sessions and everything. They'll give us a chance to save additional licensing capability. Since I already have the discovery and I have a lot of that licensing already, and they'll allow us to use the bot functionality for some self-healing and to help our customers. And then we actually have 2 more large phases throughout the next couple of years to implement at the end all the Ivanti solutions. Phase 2 will be focused in on service mapping capabilities and the healthcare implementations for us to keep an eye on all of our biomed and do more with our security. And then phase 3 will be basically wrapping up the whole platform. So for us, it's going to be a total 3-year journey. We're kind of doing it in small bites.
Excellent. And Allison, before you answer, you've got an opportunity now with a lot more products. So we had Cherwell, we had CAM, and that was kind of it. But now we've got all the security side. The EXM is near and dear to my heart, but we've got all the UEM products, security products. So you've got options now to access a lot more of the stack that we have in Ivanti, not just Cherwell and CAM. Yes, Steve.
We are doing discovery as our next step, but we also have phased projects clear through 2026. Fairway has never done service level agreements, so that's all new to them. I'm bringing that in because I understand it and how it works. But that'll be one of our next projects, and then we just have everything staged out for the next 2 years.
So what does your phase look like, Allison, your phases?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our phases and why we chose to implement CMDB and ITAM first. And the reason behind that is because through all of this change, I mentioned, a lot of M&A activity and the growth of the company, we've inherited a lot of different systems, a lot of different inventories, 1 million end user devices. And so focusing on clear, discoverable inventory for us was huge, especially in the vulnerability management space and how secure our industry is required to be. So that was the CMDB portion so that we could manage and patch and understand, what's out there and where are we at most risk. And then on the ITAM side, Naomi would tell you, she's got a small team. There's only 2 of them. And, for every end user device we have some sort of software application that, we obviously go through the rounds of rationalization, but the list has grown and grown over the years. And we have a lot of entitlements and renewals, and automation was really important for this team in order to, step away from manual process and having to keep up in the day-to-day. So those were the 2 modules that we focused on. We felt like those are core to our IT operations and had, somewhat of a limited impact where we could optimize our own day-to-day and then really hone in on and take our time on the end user experience when we roll out the ITSM piece that, obviously goes mainstream across our entire organization. We have essentially 2 phases. So we've got this one coming up at the end of April, and then, quarter after that, we'll have the ITSM side of the house. And I'm not even talking about, the Ivanti patch and some of the vulnerability capabilities that my other teams are looking into, again, to kind of wrap our hands around, that business risk.
Excellent. So Barbara, you mentioned replacing BombGuard. Allison, you mentioned you're looking at a lot of applications you might be able to replace. Steve, do you have any that you are thinking of being able to get?
I'd like to replace everything. I'm one of these people that come from a long history of working with ITSM products from the early 90s. And probably for me, I get annoyed when we buy multiple tools to do things. So we use SCCM, we use BigFix, we have CrowdStrike, we have Rapid7. We are going to start doing integrations, but I'm trying to win the sysadmin team who does desktop, laptops, all of that, trying to win them over and understanding that we can consolidate tools. Ivanti's got a plethora of products out there. And in my opinion, a lot of those things on self-healing, this discovery piece are just phenomenal.
Excellent.
I'll add that we don't use BombGuard, but we use Zoom actually for our service desk in order to remote in. And we are going to replace that with our Ivanti capability. The other piece that's coming to mind is, we use CrowdStrike, Qualys, all the tools, but what I'm learning with the team is that there's a mass amount of information in there, so you get a dump of, or a dashboard, Excel, whatever, of hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities. Well, what do you do with that? And that's where I really like some of the Ivanti patch for, the coordination and the patching capability and automation. But then, looking at the BRVM tool and how it takes the analytics from that and kind of goes a step further in what you should actually focus on and what you should tackle.
I should have asked this at the beginning. Show of hands, how many people are thinking of migrating? I'm hoping by being in here, some of you are. Excellent, almost half the room. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask how many are actually involved. How many have a project going to migrate CSM to ITSM? Now, how many are past the planning stage? Okay, good. So that's some progress there. Well, for those who are considering doing it, planning doing it, somewhere in the process, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's why we got the panel here today. As the marketing guy, I want to give and they all lived happily ever after with Ivanti Neurons. This, but the truth is, it remains a process even once you got the migration, quote unquote, completed. That happens in phases, and there's a lot of different ways of looking at what it means to be done. But what we'll hear, I think, from the panel is that you do get there. That it is possible to get from point A to point B, and I think we got some good stuff to share there.
Yeah, so we talked about getting very, very close. Barbara, you're going to be going live in about a month. Allison, April, phase 1. Steve, you're getting really, really close as well. We're on it.
Live in December.
Live in December, yes. So as Phil said, light at the end of the tunnel. They all took a little bit of a different path with timing, decided up front what they're going to leave behind, what was important to bring forward. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, and I think I talked to you all about this, so not a surprise, what surprised you and delighted you when you got into or have gotten into Ivanti? I didn't know we were going to be able to do this. I didn't know we'd have access to this. So, Barbara, again, you've got the mic.
When I first was looking at my requirements, we are a heavy Microsoft organization and we use Teams for so many different things. So I wanted some type of way that we could integrate Teams into our solution. And what really was the unexpected surprise was the Ivanti Service Manager for our Teams bot integration. For us in healthcare, when you have a provider, even at 2 a.m, that needs to put in just a really quick ticket without having to worry about, can they get a hold of someone on the service desk? If we have several people calling in the same issue, really quick, easy way for them to go in, use the chatbot feature, create their ticket, check in on where they are with any incidents and everything. For our organization, that's going to be a game changer.
Excellent. Allison or Steve?
I think for me, it was you log into the client, you click on a link, you open the console for the management side of it. It's all right there in one panel. You're no longer dealing with blueprints for your automation processes and for other things. You now have quick actions, you've got workflow, and you've got triggered actions. And I think probably the biggest surprise is what we could do just with a triggered action and do things very quickly on the fly if somebody needed a change. In a lot of cases, we don't necessarily go through staging and UAT and on in because we're just not that big. But if Retail Help Desk has an issue, we can go in and make a change on the fly and quickly do that. And one thing I do want to throw in there is we're one of those ones that we did migrate all of our data out of Cherwell. I brought all our incidents, problems, change management, everything over. And we've labeled them so that when they do a report or pull up an incident that's old, it says imported from Cherwell on it. So that way they know.
Yeah, I'm going to +1 the bot functionality. Very excited about what that can do for our end user and our service desk. And then I think the unique thought is, as a company, we had subscribed to CAM through Cherwell, and we never really got it off the ground, to be honest. It never really provided the level of value that we were looking for. And now that we're very close to implementing ITAM and we've gone through and seen some of the automated workflows and some of the functionality behind it, we are very excited with that user interface.
Excellent.
Well, I'm going to keep it on getting to the finish line just for a minute, because one question I'd like to ask that I think might be really helpful for those who are working on this now is, for each of you in your organization, what does success look like? What does finished look like? When do you know you're done, and what's the world look like at that point? Yeah, Barbara?
I guess I would say, are you ever truly done? Because you can always go back and look to improve and everything else. But for us, everything we'll consider it done when my team is no longer logging into Cherwell to review old tickets or anything, and we're just solely running on Ivanti Neurons. We actually hope to be able to do that within a month after we've gone live, if everything goes to plan, at least for the initial implementation. Again, we have contract management, expense reports, purchase requisitions, so a lot of financial data, and we're putting that all into bringing that all over. So we're very excited, and it'll just be, for us, that's the end, is when do we no longer have to log into what we consider a very old, clunky client that has a lot of issues and bugs and everything. And you just use the brand new functionality.
Absolutely. What do you think, Allison? What does done look like?
I think done to me is user adoption. So once I have, folks actually managing, maintaining their assets in our CMDB, once I've got the end user community going to our portal rather than picking up the phone, all of those things, as they grow and increase, I think that will be when I'm done.
All right, Steve, what do you got?
We're done. Kind of the same thing as what Barbara said. For us, we left Cherwell up for about 30 days after, and I was actively working on the back end. So as they closed out change requests and things like that, I imported them. So we had that archival history. But we set deadlines and said, okay, effective this date, you can no longer do incidents in Cherwell. You have to do it in Ivanti. And then the other piece to me, the finished part of it, is when we stop getting calls from people saying, well, this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, or can you add this field or this piece to the form, streamline, things like that. And we're now at that point where we're moving on. That's why we've started working with Discovery, because it seems like the end users are happy with the tool now, and we're making very few changes.
All right, so I think that's great. One of the things that you've kind of queued up really nicely with what were the surprising good benefits, the unexpected happy things that happened as we went. I think there's another way of looking at lessons learned, and I think we're going to wrap on this. I believe this is probably our last topic, but it's more of you get to this point where you're asking, if I'd known then what I know now, right? So I imagine that's something that you've probably experienced yourself, Dan.
Yes, I've mentioned that every of the migrations that we've done, we learned something new from our customers, from our consultants, from our partners. But just a quick throwback to Barbara, I liked how she said you're never done. You folks have all had some great milestones, some things you can show your business and your stakeholders of how this platform is going to benefit the business, but the business is going to change. I love it when I hear, oh, my service catalog is done. It's never going to be done. Your business is going to change. You're going to have to evolve. Ivanti is continually coming out with new capabilities. A year ago, I would not have thought we'd be able to integrate AI into the platform, the ESAM that's coming out. So we continue to evolve the capabilities of the platform, and the businesses can take advantage of that. So it's milestones and milestones and milestones. So we really appreciate the journey you have allowed us to go on with you. And we continue, and we'll be working with you folks for many years to come, I hope. But yeah, lessons learned. Like I said, we learned a lot with every single implementation that we've done. What did you folks learn kind of along the way that will help you as you go on your journey, continue the journey with the platform?
And what can you tell them about what to look out for, what they can do now that you would like to have done early on?
I think for me, it's hitting the service catalog. In an engineering kind of grown company, we like internally to develop our own tools and so forth. And when we did this first rendition of our service catalog, I mean, we went deep and technical. And our end user community almost needed a PhD in order to decode and create a ticket off our portal. I mean, that's how it is today, and it can be painful. A lot of times I'm told I give up. I just click a button until the ticket pops up and fill out my form, and you guys can figure it out later. So we took the lessons here of going that deep and of being that technical to really think about from, a user experience. They have two issues. They either need something or something's not working. And we're redefining our portal and our catalog to really align to that thought process. Now, for us in IT, we need to understand which service is what in order to categorize and route to our teams, but really taking the onus off the end user for that. That has been huge lesson learned for us as we continue this migration journey.
I have a very similar response that you did with how our previous service catalog was in Cherwell. Users felt like they could never find what they were looking for, so they would just click any button, just try to get anything. They'd click on service request for an incident or incident for a service request, don't understand, or just call out frustration. So we really try to listen to our customers, and we try to simplify. In our portal, we have service requests, and we're like, here's something that you were wanting or requesting something new. Instance, this is for something that's broken, for something put in end user speak and not in technology gobbledygook. And then we have our business objects for our expense purchase recs, stuff that's outside of our IT department that supports, but is a clear call out to really kind of streamline, keep it simple. But we also have the information on the backside for technology of what team do we need to send this ticket to and everything else. So kind of end user perspective, how can we make it the best and easiest for them to use versus what we need from the technology perspective. The one lesson learned, if I was doing this again in working with professional services, we focused really intently on the custom objects that we had created that we needed migrated without thinking, I just kind of assumed, well, we have Cherwell, we need everything that's in Cherwell migrated over. And I would have gone more in depth into that instead of just making some assumptions of here's our instance, here's our service request, here's what we need. So just to make sure we're all on the same page.
I'll add really quick also that I feel in our Cherwell journey, we kind of forced some customizations. And as you guys know, the administrative burden of that is high. So what we are doing with our Avanti is trying to do more streamlined out of the box and less customizations. And my company, again, literally work with, rocket scientists, and they get very complex when it comes to easy process. And they want to customize and they want to, go down certain rabbit holes, and just really trying to put the brakes on that and keep it as clean as possible.
Before I give it to Steve, I have to, sorry about this.
It's never going to get back to you, Steve.
I'll just speak on this topic eventually, but Allison brought up a great point. We really took a focus. We had so customized Cherwell, and that's probably why we had problems when we tried to upgrade from 9 to 10. We just couldn't do it, and we have, our same authentication doesn't work, and we couldn't do some other things and all the error problems. So we took the track of, we're going to stay with out of the box in Avanti, with only doing small tweaks, not customization, not brand new. But where did we, instead of using average resolution time, we do median, or where do we need to make our own little or minor tweaks? Like in change management, we needed a way to do urgent things that couldn't wait for CAB. Because, if a provider needs to create a procedure in the patient surgery, you can't say, I'm sorry, we can't create that process in the tool set until Friday CAB meeting. So a small little tweak, but not an overall design or true customization. So keep it simple. Steve, here you go.
Okay, I have to be the comedian on all this stuff. So back in shortly after Y2K, I came up with my own word called complexify. Do not complexify it. And that's to take something that's already complex and make it more complex. Because you can do that easily if you do what these guys are saying. If you look at your Cherwell system today and you have objects that you've highly customized, go out and analyze, do you really need that object? Is it really necessary? Or is there a way that you can do it differently and maybe streamline it? And I did get a lot of good advice from Farron on that, because I had created business objects that I no longer use. I now am using service requests to do things that I used to do as a business object in Cherwell.
Absolutely. Let's keep it on you, Steve. I think we're just about out of time. We'll lightning round it here real quick. And how about a parting shots, words of encouragement for these folks who are heading in that direction? One positive thing you can say that they have to look forward to, or something to keep in mind.
A stable, fast interface.
Very good.
No more system crashes.
pressure. I was going to go with it's okay to not get it right 100% of the time. You know, I'm all about just moving forward. So again, incremental release is progress, and, you know, open a feedback loop to your user community and your team members, and you'll get there.
All right, very good. And you get the last word there, Dan. What do you think?
Yeah, as we mentioned, we'll be available here if folks have questions. It's great to see many of you are on the journey already or thinking about the journey. So we'd be happy to talk to you and give you a little bit of guidance here today and moving forward. So thank you all so much for coming today.